Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. And as usual, I want to welcome our guests. First of all, I want to state that I know how precious the commodity of time is. And so I want to be grateful and thank you for coming and sharing that commodity. Second, I know how personal and how powerful your journey is. And I want to also send out a gratitude to thank you for coming to our site to be here and spend time with us. And it is my hope that I create a space by which you feel comfortable, safe, that you can explore your memories and teach us that we may learn and become better students while we're here on this planet. Doc, I want to thank you for coming. We have Dr. Evans here. Thank you so much for coming at Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It is my pleasure. I have been reading and looking at all of your things this whole week. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Tell us about the things that you have created. My listeners know that I believe we are all creators. So talk to us about the things that you have given birth so far in your life.
For starters, I grew up in Georgetown, South Carolina, with my parents, Paul and Marie, and my younger brother, Paul. He's third. My dad is junior. Paulette, so it's Paul, and Marie. And initially, I created a space of empowerment. And I realized that as I think back, I was always that child that knew I could do anything. And I didn't believe otherwise. I just didn't understand or comprehend otherwise. So I used that to help other people see that in themselves and see abilities in themselves. And then fast forward, high school, same situations, especially for young girls. I was very interested in math, science, STEM, and I ended up going into electrical engineering. But it was a lot of conversations creating that space for women to say, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can be an engineer. Yes, I can like math, even though I'm a girl. So creating those spaces, and then fast forwarding to college where I was the only female in some of my engineering classes. But creating that space that I am here as a student, I'm qualified, I have thoughts, I have ideas, and I need to share them. Otherwise, I'll be ignored. And so creating a safe space for myself, telling myself, yes, it is safe to speak up, it's safe to say these things because you know these things. You're intelligent. You can contribute to this conversation. Yeah. And then after graduation, that just carried itself on. So now I'm between corporate and entrepreneurship, many positions, many companies. I've always been that person that is either creating a space for women, so either a network or an outreach situation, or I'm volunteering for organizations that focus on empowering women. And I'm in leadership positions, etc., just trying to help out the next woman so that she can do all the things she wants to do and she can be in a space and feel like she belongs there and actually take advantage of it. So, and I don't dislike men, but you all have a head start a little bit. So we're trying to catch up. So I want to keep creating a space so women know that we can catch up. We can be a big part of everything. We are equals. And again, the world is our oyster. We literally can do anything we want.
I absolutely agree. I believe the woman part of the human being brings a totally different perspective to the team as a unit, that when they join their wisdom, when they join their perspective, their different perspective, when they're looking at a situation that presents to that relationship, that they have a fullness and they have a better chance of overcoming that situation if the husband is man enough to know his place. But that's just my take on that. Yes. So I want to take you back because I know you have said much and you have spoken about this powerful woman, but it sounded like this powerful woman had a start and it was this powerful young girl. I want you to talk to me about your family unit and where and how was this powerful young girl created?
Yeah. So my mom and dad, they've been married for, I think, around 45 years. This September will be 45 years. They have always been together. I grew up in a two-parent household, and that's all I know. I don't know any different. So again, the people that don't have this, I empathize in their their upbringing. Not that it's bad, it's just different. And so they had to most likely adjust to certain things or et cetera. And that is what it is. But again, as we get deeper into this, it doesn't have to determine your now, but it is part of your past and you acknowledge it. With my parents, I always saw my mom leading. My dad also led, but my mom led in specific areas in terms of the household finances, making sure everything functioned the way it was supposed to, just time management. And so those things I picked up from her because, again, I'm looking at the woman who created me. I'm looking at her, and this is what she's doing. So then this seems like what I should be doing in terms of wherever it fits in. But this is what makes sense to me. So my upbringing, my reality is what shaped some of my views on my current marriage. Like even with my husband, I handle the finances. I do all bills and all these things. Because again, seeing that growing up, that made sense. And so to me, that was the way to do it because it worked. It was never an issue. The power never got turned off. So in my mind, I said, she's doing it right because every day we wake up, we have everything we need in terms of the utilities in the house. We still have a house. We're in a house. We're not getting eviction notices or anything like that. The bank isn't calling. So I have to assume what she's doing is correct. And so that stayed with me, even in my current relationship when my husband and I were dating and we got engaged. I asked him these questions. I'm like, these are the things I am used to. These are my norms. Are they okay with it? And it was fine with them. My mom and dad both have college degrees. My mom then went on to get her master's and I guess plus 30 hours is what they always refer to it as. She was a teacher. So I think she made a little more than my dad. But again, they both still contributed to the household and both stayed employed the entire time I was growing up. So again, in my mind, is it okay that a woman makes more than a man in some households, in some parts of society? No. But I need to make sure my future husband is okay with that if it is. My husband was in education. I was an engineer. So I told him, I said, it's almost inevitable that I will always make more money than you, and you have to be okay with that. And he was okay with it. So it's that thing where you can't make assumptions. And for the life of me, I don't know why people think walking down the aisle and signing a piece of paper is going to change somebody at their core level. These are the things you have to ask up front and explain that this is something that most likely will happen on your career. This is something that will probably not change. Is that going to be a deal breaker for you? Just having these conversations up front helps with your future relationships. But again, a lot of it was watching my mom and seeing what she did. She was a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, Eastern Star. She volunteered in her church. And so again, in my mind, I saw, you can work full time, but then you also need to be a servant leader and give back where you can. Because you have gifts, you have privileges, you have to be able to give back. And so I saw that, and so that shaped my volunteer love. My love of volunteering, love of giving back my time, any extra that I have or that I can make, I give back. So all those things help me see that you can be in this world a strong Black woman who is successful and who isn't angry all the time about something. And when you are angry, it's justified, and you figure out how you deal with it. Whether it's you're not someone said something or done something that you don't like, and you telling them about it. But she wasn't very confrontational, but she would call somebody to the carpet when necessary. And so again, seeing that showed me how I can choose to behave, or choose the things that I like or that would fit into my life to make me an empowered woman. And I just kept those things. And again, it's one of those things where you pick and choose. For me, the things that she did well that I thought would fit for me, I kept. Other things, I mean, she's, I like to call her a Southern belle, because she grew up in the South and, 50s, 60s, so she has her own way of doing certain things. And in my mind, I was like, that's not me. I'm a little bit more aggressive and assertive, and I say whatever I'm thinking, and I'm okay with that. So that's not necessarily her style. But again, you choose the things that are part of your now or your then, your reality. Choose what you want to add to it to make sure you get to the reality you want to get to. And then when you get there, you own it. And you don't change for other people. You don't accommodate other people that don't understand you as yourself. If they don't accept you, then they don't belong in your world. They don't belong in your space. And that's okay. But knowing who you create as you from a child to now, who I created as a person is me. And you can take it or leave it. You're not going to hate it. It doesn't matter. I still stay true to myself. Because this is what again, God created, and then I capitalized it, and I can't change that for a human being. That will never.
I love it. I love this.
I'm happy to be.
I love this stuff because listening to your journey, now you could see, okay, now I can picture where this powerful young girl came from, where she was given
Yes.
birth. And hearing your conversation and looking at your mother and picking and choosing and taking those things that you felt would be part of you incorporated, and those that weren't necessary, you laid those aside. And there's nothing, as you said, there's no
Yes.
judgment. And I think that is the problem with us as individuals in some cases, not, is that we take the time to stop to judge. And that creates
Yeah.
such pain and unnecessary emotional damage that is not necessary and needed in an individual. But here you are, this young girl. Like, again, I got the picture where you got your strength from and how you began to evolve as an individual. And you mentioned high school briefly. Talk to me a little here. Let's make a pit stop in high school with
Yeah.
how did that individual, that strong woman now, how did she begin to incorporate and develop herself, not in the family unit, outside of the family unit, in dealing with other personalities, other situations. You get a chance to see all the different broken folks that did not incorporate the or had the insight to incorporate things like you did in your life as a young girl as you moved through. Talk to me about your interaction at that space in high school.
Yeah, and high school was its own interesting space, for lack of a
Mhm.
better word. So many different personalities, so many different
Yeah.
backgrounds. The thing that always sticks out to me was I was a child who was very, I was intelligent, and so when I was in first grade, I would get bored because I would finish assignments really quick,
Hmm.
and then I'd go over to the classroom across the hall, which was a secondary class, and I'd help the teacher with the students and go from student to student to make sure they were understanding their work, all of that good stuff. And
Yeah.
so eventually they just said, you know what, just move to second grade. And so I skipped first grade,
Hmm.
technically. So in high school, I was always the youngest person in my class. I was always a year under
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
And so I'm walking in as the young girl. And in my mind, and I guess I was just mature because no one really realized it or it didn't matter. It never played a role in what I
Hmm.
did. I always showed up and everyone thought I was the leader, no matter what space I was in.
Yeah.
So the age thing never mattered or
Yeah. Yeah.
factored in. But I will say, and I talked about my mom quite a bit, but my dad he was an electrician. And so I was always a person who liked to take apart things back together, work with him on cars outside, things like that. And
Hmm.
he was also one, again, that told me I can be anything. So that also helped me see that I can be a girl and love math. I can sit in this
Yeah.
calculus class and answer the question, even if the other people in the class didn't. And I'm okay with that. And if a
Hmm.
boy feels intimidated,
Yeah.
then he's intimidated. He's not my type anyway. Because I can't deal with somebody like that. And my dad always told me I can choose who I want to let in my life. And I don't
Yes.
have to settle. I don't have to be with a man who can't be beside a strong woman. And so that
Yes.
always played in my mind. And so that portrayed itself in many ways, whether it was just friendships that I formed or conversations I had, the classes I took, where I excelled, me figuring out things I didn't like in terms of academics so I can know what
Hmm.
I want to do for college. Me talking to any boys I wanted to talk to, but not really date because I really wasn't into dating. And I figured I needed to get
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
friends before all of that started. That was my priority. So
Yeah.
again, that's me showing up in a space, and when someone didn't understand me or didn't agree, it wasn't. Again, you don't have to, and that's okay. But we have
Yeah.
different opinions. That's also okay. But you can't disrespect me because that's one thing my dad always
Yeah.
always demand respect. So that is my way of showing up is in a space that demands respect. I walk and I show up. I walk in, I arrive, and I just know my own truth. I know my own value, and so I don't have to second guess it or downplay it for anybody else. And so in high school, that
Yeah.
became
That's
very important because
yeah.
that's a time where a lot of students and a lot of kids just they're very impressionable, they're
Yep.
weak-minded because they haven't been given the tools, and they don't think they
Hmm.
can do a lot of things. So they
Yeah.
follow. They don't want to lead. They just follow. They don't want to seem like the
Yeah.
oddball, so they do things and they sit in situations that are not healthy. they get with the wrong crowd, etc. And so for me, it was,
Yep.
I had my own group of friends that I would always try to influence in a positive manner. Just really 5 girls out of us, we just always hung out together. And it was like we were sisters keeper. I always made sure we all, had our wits about us and that we knew what we were doing. We knew how to coach
Yeah.
guys, or we knew how to coach another female. We knew how to show up in class. We knew how to also have fun, but we knew how to prioritize education because it's important and it's going to take us where we need to be after high school. So high school I
This
enjoyed it.
is
It
yeah.
was interesting for sure.
Yeah, because having those insights that you were the seeds that were planted within you, and I love what your dad did to usher all that wisdom and all of that knowledge into you, where it housed and grew and caused you to begin to walk that life of choice. And having someone at such a young age living from choosing and not you get a chance to see what happens in high school with that petri dish of belief systems and how people are just drifting back and not sure, just all over the place. And then you have those that are living by making decisions, because that's where we have to get to in your personal growth. When you arrive basically is when you take, as you said, you mentioned it earlier, but I just wanted to walk you through so that people can get a chance to hear it and really walk with you as you move through choice and taking responsibility of the choice. I always said to people, the reason why they are stagnating down and they haven't moved in their life is because they haven't made a decision yet. The human being, the human experience, and the power within the human spirit, soul, and body is this. Once you have decided, you will pull because of the words that you have said. I always tell people that, what is your statement of faith? And the reason why I say statement of faith is you got to believe this thing more than anybody else. And when you get there and
Anybody.
you believe it, and it doesn't matter what they say, because you believe this, you took ownership of this, whatever that thought, whatever that statement that you have made within yourself. Now that becomes power. What happens is from that place, when you release the words, you will then take the corresponding action that are necessary to bring that statement to pass. And I tell them life is a series of statement of faith, and it'll move you from one direction to the other. And so I'm listening to your story and I'm excited because I'm seeing this young girl, this young Black woman taking this thing and from the input of her strong dad and strong mother, and she is formulating herself and creating, pardon the English, this badass woman. So here we are. You are moving forward in life. You are moving through college. In high school, you're watching, you got your sisters and you guys are supporting each other, and you're walking now into the college arena. And I wanted to go back and talk about this because a lot of within our people, the programming is that the man got to bring in the more money and all that kind of stuff. And that sick thinking destroys a lot of marriages, and families are destroyed because of that erroneous belief system. It doesn't matter when the unit comes together. It doesn't matter who is bringing in the money. You are not less of a man because you're bringing in less than your wife. What in the world are you talking about? But a lot of people believe that, and I want you to talk about that, Doc. I will go back to the college thing, but I want you to talk about that because you had a conversation with your boyfriend, fiance, husband about that stuff. And you guys came to an agreement. And this man recognized that his manhood was not tied into his money, but his woman is the main thing in it, and the jobs they're not. That phenomenal blows my mind up. Talk to them about it.
Yeah. So, and again, it's what I saw growing up, and this is where I think it helped because both my parents again had college degrees, so that was the start of it. So that contributed to the fact that they could both bring in money. They had stable jobs.
Yeah.
They both worked over 30 years in their employment, and they saved and did retirement the way that they're supposed to. So they did everything that they were supposed to do. I mean, in my mind, what makes sense in terms of how it flows. And when my mom would make more, say, because of her advanced degree, my dad would make more, in over a 2-week period because he had overtime, where she was, a set employee, salary employee, so there was no overtime. My dad could make overtime. So I don't know, I guess it was exempt plus or something, and I can't remember the terminology, but he had a set 40 hours, but he can also work overtime and get overtime. And so there'd be weeks where he'd work Saturday and Sunday, and then that would bump him a little bit higher, that week. So it always ebbed and flowed. So no matter what, it worked itself out. And even if there were months where he didn't have a lot of overtime, he still contributed in all these other ways that you can't even put a price tag on, in terms of changing the oil in the cars, the cutting of the grass, fixing everything around the house, which is why I know how to fix so many things, because I would watch him, or I'd just be right up under him, just seeing what he was doing between cars and doorbells, wiring, because again, he was an electrician. I ended up doing electrical engineering, so a lot of my training came from watching him. So there was always a give and take, and that's the only way to make any relationship work. If one person is giving everything, I mean, this is a situation where if I'm the woman and I'm making more money, but I'm also doing all the repairs around the house, I'm cutting the grass, I'm doing everything, then what exactly are you doing? So you have to value yourself. You have to know your worth. Is it worth having this man lie around and, contribute when you can? And not really help out with anything else? Is that serving you in some way, shape, or form? Because if it's not, you don't need to tolerate that or accept it or maintain it. So that's the give and take. If a man is okay with not making as much money, knowing in yourself what it is you do add to this relationship. It doesn't have to be monetary. What else? And making sure those things always balance out, because they have to.
Men need to be men, Doc.
The relationship has to have reciprocity. Reciprocity has to be there all the time. Otherwise, someone's going to feel like they're not getting enough in the relationship, and that's when and rather than have a conversation, people choose to do all these other things to try to solve the problem, or to just maintain. Whether they have a side relationship or they just don't like the person, or they just keep them around every day. I still don't understand why you would, but some people do. Companionship, maybe. I don't know. But that goes back to that worth conversation. What is my worth? And what is it I choose to tolerate? And what are things that I refuse to do? And just understanding what that is and making sure you live by it every day.
Yes. We are precious. I'm an endangered species. I've said this. My friends have said this. I've said this many times on the podcast. I am an endangered species. Reason why. There is nothing like me on this planet, because when I go, my fingerprint goes with me. My retina goes with me. My voice recognition goes with me. My face recognition goes with me. And there will never be another one like that. So then, if that's the case, it is my responsibility then to act and behave as one that is an endangered species. So how I let people respond to me, how I respond to people, those are my decisions to, once I recognize my value, it becomes your responsibility. And so one of the very first journey that people need to go on to, we talked about this space about learning to love the self, because from that place, you are walking in power. That power is that you recognize who you are and who you allow in your energy. All of the different things emanate from that relationship with yourself, how you love your mate, how you love everything. Because if you are judgmental on yourself, guess what? You're going to judge your mate all day long. If you're hateful to yourself, you're going to do the same. So if people need to be honest and look at themselves and look at their relationship and see, and in most cases, it's a reflection of themselves. And you have to go in and begin to say, okay, I need to be honest. I'm a mess. Let me sit down with you. I'm a mess, and I could see this mess is causing a mess in you, and we're messed up. Let's fix this. So Here you are, Doc. You are this powerful human spirit. I love this conversation. I know we had talked about college, but let's move. Let's keep moving. I want you to talk about here's this woman. You've
Mhm.
graduated. You are here. You did you meet your husband in college or in your profession?
So we met in high school.
In
So
high school.
we met in high school, but at Clemson University. So we were both in two different
Okay.
high schools in South Carolina, and they had a summer camp that you could apply to just to get
Hmm.
a feel of the campus. And it was open to
Yeah.
juniors and sophomores. So you can decide where you want to go during your senior year. I was in 10th grade, he was in
Hmm.
11th, and we met each other at that summer camp, I think on the last day. It was a 2-week program. And we met the last day,
Hmm.
and there was like a bowling social at the end to end it all, and everyone was leaving the next day. And he was trying to teach me how to bowl because he realized I didn't know how to bowl. And so we were just
Hmm.
friends because I think I had a
Hmm.
boyfriend. I use that term loosely because in 10th grade, it's nothing serious. But I had a boyfriend
Hmm.
at home, and so we were just friendly. Like he taught me how to bowl.
Yeah.
This was before cell phones, and so we ended up being pen pals. Like we wrote each other letters. And again, this is still just
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
friends. And then fast forward to actual college, he ended up at Clemson a year before I did, and we ran into each other in the middle of campus one day, in between classes, changing classes. And Clemson is a fairly decent sized campus. So for the two of us to just run
Yeah.
into each other in the middle of it was just amazing because we had lost touch, I think, for about a year. And so we just picked up where we left off from. I was again dating someone, and so we were just friends. And that friendship just
Hmm.
maintained for easily 2.5, 3 years of my time at Clemson. And then we just started hanging out more and more and more. And then finally we just decided to date, and here we are. So we've known each other
Yeah.
I've known him for over 20 years. I've known him for 23 years, I
Wow.
want to say. So over half my life I've known him. And so we were friends for, forever long. And then we dated 4 years before we got engaged. We got engaged and was engaged for a year. And now we've been married for 18. So it's been a long time. It's been a serious chunk of time that we've been in each other's lives. So
Doc, that's the fairy tale thing that people read and hear about in movies, and you guys are living it. So I'm
yeah,
happy, and I'm glad. I truly am. That's a profound
yes.
story. The whole thing about I'm telling you, you couldn't write that any better than what you guys experienced. So here you are. You are
Yes.
moving forward. You chose your profession, and we do understand why, and you are here within this profession and you're mingling. I know you had several positions and you ended up in healthcare.
Yeah.
What made you move from that into healthcare? Because healthcare is a
Yes.
beast of an industry. And so you left
Yeah.
an engineering position and walked into the beast. Talk to me about that transition. How did
Yeah.
it come by? And how was that seed planted, and how was it given birth?
Yeah. So I was with General Electric for right at 10 years. And if anyone knows the tales and stories of General Electric, it is a cutthroat company. I mean, it's you work and you work and you work because you always in your mind you're thinking that when they do this, bottom 10%, someone's going to get cut, and I need to make sure it's not me, so I
Cut,
can't be
yeah.
at the bottom.
Hmm.
So I have to keep pushing. So I worked a lot. Those 10 years felt like 20. Like, I mean, I was working an insane
Mm.
amount of hours a week, and I realized that it wasn't healthy for starters, and there was
Yeah,
no possibility for work life balance. I knew that it wasn't going to happen, and I was only going to get my sanity back if I left. And so that's when the conversation
yeah.
started in my head. I was like, where is it? I've always wanted to understand what's the industry. And I said, healthcare has always been fascinating to me. It's just something I've watched from afar,
Hmm.
but I want to know whether I can get in on the other side. Can I get through the door? And so I started looking
Yeah.
at positions, and I found a position at Cone Health, which is in Greensboro. At the time, I was working in Mebane
Hmm.
at the General Electric location there. And I lived in between the two places. So I was like, I can either go right in the morning or go left. Either way, it won't make that
Yeah.
much of a difference. So it's going to be about 20 minutes. So I found a position called the Quality Improvement Facilitator. And I said, okay, I mean, I have my Six Sigma, black belt, green belt before that. I'm a project manager.
Hmm.
I have an electrical background, but I mean, I know that these quality tools can be used in various places. So when I went through
Yeah.
the job description, it said healthcare preferred, healthcare experience preferred. And I was like, I have everything else on this list, except that one thing. And unless somebody gives
Mm-hmm.
me a chance, I will never have it to check it off, never look for another position.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this can be
Yeah.
my jump off point. And so I put a little question mark by it as I was writing up my notes. Got the screening, phone screening went well, and then I got the interview in person. And I told them, I said, quality is universal. It doesn't matter if I don't have
Mm-hmm.
healthcare experience. I have all this other experience. And trust me, it'll be valuable
Yeah.
on this team, because it was a team full of
Yeah.
industrial engineers. And you all bring amazing things to the
Uh-huh.
table, but no one else is going to bring
Yeah.
electrical but me. So, and that's
Yeah.
its own
Mm-hmm.
special systematic mindset. Because electrical, we learn
Yeah.
at Clemson that electrical is filled with systems. It's what makes things start, what
Yes.
makes things stop, how the things cross over. And when you look at a circuitry board or anything, it's systems. It's literally going from point A to B, whether it's a straight line or does it
Mm-hmm.
have to go through all these nodes and hoops and all these things. And that's what my mindset, it functions that way now. I see everything as a system.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would be bringing to the table. And when I told them that, it was a done deal. So that's how I ended up crossing over to healthcare. I tell people that my engineering training never leaves me. I literally use it every day in some way, shape, or form. Now, I literally
Yeah.
used it about 3 months in at Cone, because on our level,
Mm-hmm.
the breaker kept tripping. And if someone turned on like
Yeah.
a space heater and then another space heater, the breaker would trip. And so within the first 3 months, I was in the electrical panel room of our office building. And I was like, here I am
Wow.
in this new industry and a whole new position. I'm at a hospital and I'm hanging out in the electrical room. And I took a picture and I sent it to my dad. And I was like, guess where I am? It was just so ironic and hilarious. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that. And that's when it was proven to me that I will never leave my electrical knowledge. I will never not be using it, because it's going to show up in different ways. And in that moment, it showed up with me looking at the panel and saying, yeah, the breaker for our suite is not large enough. I think it was a 20 or 30 amp breaker, one pole, and it needed to be a 40 amp two pole breaker. It
Yeah.
wasn't given enough. We were putting up too much power for it.
Enough.
So
Yeah.
it would trip every
Mm-hmm.
time
Yeah.
too much power hit it. So
Yeah.
that's how that transition went. And I literally think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. I learned so much about healthcare and feeling like I was indirectly helping patients
Mm-hmm.
having a better life or go from
Yeah.
one day to the next. That was extremely, as opposed to my time at General Electric, where I was only concerned with the bottom
Yeah.
line because that's what the company was concerned with. This
Was
gave
it
me
compromise?
a
Yeah.
bigger, a feeling like I had a bigger purpose, and it gave me a passion
Mm-hmm.
to show up every day for work and do my best and make sure I was doing what I needed to do as a part of my team, for any project I was leading, any conversation I was facilitating. And it just was extremely rewarding. So that was an amazing 10
Yeah.
years. I worked for 3 different healthcare systems, and I just loved every minute of it.
Yeah, healthcare. I love healthcare, but I wanted you to tell that story because I knew that within that story will house the process by which you obtain that, you made that move. And we talked about it
Yes.
briefly in the onset, and I talked about it a little as well. You and I individuals have to come to a place of deciding. And I don't care
Yes.
where it is, where that move is, and because there's a scripture, and I usually bring this out because I tell people my upbringing. I grew up in a church. I was a pastor of a church, and I study, and so I studied all kinds of religion, and I pull wisdom from all. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, in Job, it says, decide a thing and it shall be established. But the correct interpretation, because I love studying the original language and so forth, because language to me is very fascinating. The original language states, it says, decide a thing. And so you have to decide it first before you can declare it. So it says, decide a thing
Mhm.
and it shall be established. Definite article. Why?
Mhm.
Because the human spirit needs that deciding. And once you
Yes.
have decided, you will initiate the corresponding response. And here you are, you went through that thing. And even though you saw in one of their requirements something that you did not have at that time, but you had made a decision that you wanted that position. You went into your interview, decide a thing, and it shall be established, because what is happening is behind the scene is that you believe this, you own that. And so when you sat in front of those guys, because it happened to me all the time, I did the same thing. I sat in front of the company and I told them, I said, you can't do anything without me. And they looked at me like I'd lost my mind. And I told them, but I wasn't qualified for the position. But I had some information. I did marketing outside. I met. This was an HMO, one of the first HMOs in the state of Florida, Medicaid HMO. So I knew the physician because my previous job was a marketer. And I personally love to get a chance to meet my physician and their offices that they were located. So I wanted to know where I was sending my people. So I got to meet all these physicians and their staff. Now, when this other company was coming into my area to start a new HMO, I looked to them and said, you can't get your accreditation without me, because I know all of these doctors. I can get you your accreditation. They looked at me, and I had no, quote unquote, the skills for that, the background, but I had something that was special. I know who I was, I know what I could do, and I knew the doctor. And I got them, those doctors, to build that network in such a quick time that we got our accreditation, we got approved, and we were able to initiate our business. And so once you and I, Doc, and I tell people the power resides in you, because when you begin to speak to those people and they feel that energy, because you own this. I said to myself when I went to the job, I'm simply going there, number one, to find out how much money I make and when I'm going to start. That's exactly what I said to myself when I went to that interview. So I knew that when I released my words to them, it landed like a rock. They were looking at them going, what is with this gentleman? But because I came from my belief system, and it was powerful enough to make them believe in me, to give me the chance like they did with you. And God will always use everything that you have ever learned in your life, because guess what? He's been preparing you. And all those things are a part of what he's going to call you to do. So now you are this young girl.
Absolutely.
You saw what your mother was doing with volunteering and stuff like that. And you're on the outside looking in, not knowing, but you took some of those things in you. And then when you got to the place you are today, that seed is full blown tree. And that's all you know how to do. And it was planted there when your mother was doing her stuff. So talk to me, Doc. You walked into healthcare. I loved that space because I learned a lot. I got a chance to see people's need. I got a chance to expand my heart. It made me empathetic as a result of learning and growing. When I went into skilled nursing facility, I saw things that, because I came from the corporate side, and my sister told me, do not go into the skilled nursing because you're going to lose your mind. But it helped me to become a better man. And so you alluded that it allowed you to become more purposeful as you entered into that space. So talk to me now, as you've gone through all of these changes, you're moving with your family, all of these things, you're this power, as I mentioned to you earlier, pardon my English, this badass woman. And you are at this space, and you're now you've accumulated all this knowledge, and I call it policies and procedures that we have obtained in our journey. Now you're going to take these policies and procedures, and you're going to create a manual by which you can now teach, by which you may instruct. Talk to me how you began to move from within the hospital space and create these opportunities now to reach back, as you stated, to educate women about the power that they are.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I don't tell you something that I wouldn't tell myself. So I always start there. Mm-hmm. So the same conversations I have with these women, had conversations with myself, I've lived it. I've lived the situation, I've experienced it sometimes from a place of, this is how this happened to me. So hopefully you can take some nuggets from my situation and my story and use them in your life or apply them in your world. With healthcare, it was my first time being outside of industrial. so an industrial manufacturing
Yeah.
kind of mindset or space. But I realized that, again, the same tools, the methodology, everything that I was doing there, I could apply in healthcare. So that's when it struck me that I could most likely use those methodologies anywhere, whether I'm in a healthcare situation, whether I'm in a manufacturing situation, whether I'm at a school, whether I'm in somebody's house. So I've really started to just incorporate in my mind all the time just a methodology that goes from, and it follows the Six Sigma training in terms of define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And so I feel like every situation I'm in, I can walk through that methodology, those 5 steps. It helps me understand what's happening right now, what are the facts, how can I make it better after I analyze the situation, what can I put in place to improve it, and how can I maintain this new process. And that's what I step through all the time. So I think that way whenever I am working, but also when I'm at my volunteer space. Again, after healthcare, I started my consulting business, which I started before COVID, and then COVID showed up. And I said, okay, I need 2 more years. And so fast forward 2 years, here we are. But I'm realizing that I'm utilizing that same methodology everywhere I go. And so now I'm able to do that on my own terms and help with the help. And again, if it's a working woman, that's my ideal client because she's the one that has all these hats. And she needs to figure out how to streamline her day and her processes so she can be. But I can also help out from a corporate standpoint because I still have my system implementation mindset, process improvement, project management. And then I'm also helping from a nonprofit standpoint for organizations. I can help with business modeling, strategic planning, all those things. So I'm literally pulling out from my toolbox everything I've learned between manufacturing and healthcare for that 20-year period. And I can use that to help anyone. I just need to understand what your situation is. And then I can figure out how to make it work and fit through that methodology. And so when I do have free time, I want to give these skills away for free, I'll say, by helping out in these organizations where they're focused on empowering women. And if your organization doesn't have an arm that is even thinking about women, then I can't even tolerate it. Like I can't even make time for it. I have 5 or 6 organizations I've worked for recently, and I've been in leadership positions in all of them. But it's been a amazing space to sit in and listen to women and their stories or a situation they have going on, even a problem that isn't even a problem. They haven't even realized it's a problem. It's something that they're just talking through or thinking out loud. And we just happen to be having a conversation. And in that moment, I can share wisdom with her and say, okay, why is that happening? Why did you make that choice? Oh, okay, well, why did this happen after that? And then we go through this 5 why kind of process without them even realizing that I'm, in my mind, I'm in work mode. Like I've already turned on the systems and I'm thinking and I'm processing and I'm trying to figure out how to get her to the other side of this thing so she can put a new process in place and be a better person and be less tired, be more productive, be more assertive, be more impactful at home. Because it is the worst feeling in the world to spend 14 hours doing. And you get to bed that night and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't do the 2 things I need to do today. I had 2 things on my list. I didn't get either of those things done. And I've been going full steam ahead for 14 hours. It is a very, very annoying feeling. So I want to make sure women don't have that feeling often. So that's where I come in. Again, with my volunteer work is important to me as my work, my profession. I've always had them on the same level. And so I end up prioritizing time and making, because again, I'm helping out more women who then help out the community and help out the men in our community.
Yes, it spreads.
So it's always a ripple effect. Always.
It spreads. It becomes more impactful than you will probably even know until after, when the scales, as they say, has been settled. And I love what you talked about and how life is a project. So all of us are involved in project management on a daily basis. So the principles that you learn, whether it's in a professional sense that you learn, the principle applies to all projects. And we are that in a everyday. Jesus says, pick up your cross and follow me, deal with your stuff. And so we are all in this project, constantly moving forward, learning who we are, I tell people, do not be afraid of the darkness. The darkness is when the creator in you shows up, because you didn't need the creator when everything is all good. But when that creator shows up, guess what? What was the very first thing God said? He said, let there be. And he began to speak to that situation. I tell
Right.
people, you're going to have to
That's
open your
right.
mouth. And so you're going to have to talk to it and
Yep.
tell it, wait a minute, and be very specific with the things you desire. And guess what? Once you're specific, because of who you are and the power that is within you, because you have now released those words out into the sphere of of human behavior, it will pull all of those
Mhm.
people, the circumstances, the answers that you need to have you create that at a cellular level, just like the creator did. He was just teaching you and I how to do it. So here you are teaching all of these wonderful things. And I love that you said, you mentioned that, you are this perpetual project manager and that you're bringing these tools to the people. And I think one of the things that they can, I believe that's why you're there, is because they're so busy that they don't know the questions that needs to be asked in order to bring them to a place of changing their perspective. Because the questions that you ask them are probing questions. Why do you know how to ask those questions? Because what? You lived it. You know what it took, and you know the result that it will bring, or the fruit that it would bring forth. So you're able to then ask those
Yes.
questions to cause them to slow down, think, process this
Mhm.
information. And as they do that, the tools that you are implanted into them, and they began to change, and that project began to manage itself, as they say.
Yes,
And
exactly.
so, and you talk to me about one of those incidents, because I tell people, when the second gift that we get once we walk through, and your story is so powerful, is to become that teacher, and you do it through your volunteering work. That the
Mhm.
gift that we get from there, I tell them, I said, this final piece right here is one of the most powerful force that an individual will get to experience while we're here, when you're doing it from the pure heart as a teacher, expecting nothing but giving that joy that comes from deep within you. When you speak to someone of us, these ladies, that is busy, this mother that is running around 29 hours a day and can't figure out why the day left. Talk to me about one of those stories, Dom, when you talk to her and you ask those questions and you slowly begin to see that precious light, that revelation dropping into them. And when it
Mhm.
hits and they receive it, and their world changes from that moment. Talk to me about something like that. How did it
Yeah.
feel to you, and how that expression, that joy that you saw in them as well? Talk to me about one of those.
Mhm. So this is one of my. I'll start with it being one of my meetings. It's one of my just normal leadership meetings. I walk in. I typically
Mm-hmm.
get to meetings a little early, and I just kind of read the room a little bit. Someone sitting off to the side by themselves, or is there a conversation happening about something I need to involve with? And so this particular evening, one of my ladies in the group, she just kind of looked a little down. She was just kind of sitting at the table on her phone. And so I went over to her table, sat there, and I just said, hey, how you doing? What's going on? How's your day going? And she said, fine. And I said, okay, how's work going? Because I hadn't talked to her in a while about work. And I want to say, and again, this is all of it is weird with COVID time, because in that moment, I
Mm-hmm.
felt like we hadn't talked about her job in, a month, but it may have been a year, because COVID just kind of screwed up timing. But
Yeah.
regardless, I knew we had talked a little bit before about something she wasn't liking at work, and she just wasn't sure if it was right fit, etc. So I said, how's work going? Has anything improved? And that's when she was like, no, not really. I'm really just not sure I need to be there anymore. And I was like, well, why do you feel that way? And so she starts telling me the story about how she she did all these things. She's been killing it. And she recently was overlooked for a promotion. And in her mind, she knew that that position was hers. Like, it was her and one other guy going up for it. She's a Black woman. She's in STEM field. So it's, few
Mm-hmm.
women and few Black women for sure.
Yeah.
But she had already done all this work, the heavy lifting. She put in the extra hours. She led the extra teams and the initiatives that came down from corporate. She did all of this work. And she was up with this other guy for the promotion. And the guy was there less time than she was, and she has more experience than him. She has a couple more certifications, all these things. And so when the announcement came out and she wasn't chosen, she just kind of went into herself. And so this was maybe months prior. And again, this was my first time seeing her in a while. And so me talking her through why this didn't feel right, why didn't it sit well? Like, why did you think that you deserved it? And this, and I'm getting all this information. I'm asking her why. And I said, "Oh, you overlooked why? Why did you apply? Like, why were you qualified?" And that's when she told me about the certifications and experience and the years of work and all the extra initiatives and all these things. And he didn't have those. And I said, "Oh, okay. So then, why do you think you were overlooked? Why do you think this happened?" And this is where she had to really just kind of sit in it for a little bit to try to understand why it happened. Like, why? And this is where it's hypothetical and almost rhetorical because you don't know why. Because they don't call you into the room and say, "Okay, yeah, we chose this candidate because he's a man. We chose this candidate because they're white." I don't know the situation. And with her, she probably won't ever get an answer to that question either. But in the moment, I wanted her to ask herself that because she needed to sit in it and say, "You know what? I don't know why, but what I do know is they overlooked me this time, they overlooked me again." And that's why I had to pick her too. I had to get her to that point where she accepted that, understood it, and knew that there's nothing else she could do. She did everything she was supposed to do. And they're never going to give her what she deserves. So she has to figure out how to get what she deserves, possibly from somewhere else. And in that moment when it hit her, she was just kind of overcome. And she had never thought, I need to up and leave to get what I deserve. Like she never even thought about it. Like it had never crossed her mind. And so having that conversation, and that's why I wanted her to get to. When she first started talking, I was like, "I know how this is going to go down. And she's going to have to get out of the space. But I can't tell her that. She's going to have to realize it on her own." And in that moment when she realized it, she that was it. She was like, "Okay, I'm ready." And she asked, "Could she send a resume to me the next day to look at?" And I said, "Of course, absolutely. I want you to be as prepared as possible when you go and set up these applications and get all these phone calls for these interviews, because you are a hot commodity, and if they can't see it, somebody else will." And again, always, like I tell people, always demand your worth. And in that moment, she knew what her worth was, and so now she just needed to go forth and demand it. And that's what she did. And so she got out of the position, got out of the company, and now she is extremely happy at work. She feels very appreciated. She's leading in the way that she knows she can lead. That was being stifled at the other company, and she's in a much better place, much better place. But in that moment, it just took me helping her see what she already knew. She already knew the answer. It was just kind of buried.
The reason why I pulled you there is because I wanted you to tell the story, because a lot of people don't even think about it, and that the questioning, because as I take some examples from with Jesus, and he said people were getting healed, and he looked at them, they come touch him, did all this stuff. "I want my eyes healed," and he says, "Oh, your faith made you whole." And he's looking at them. He kept pointing back to them. He kept pointing. The disciples, he's sleeping in the boat. He's tired. He's doing his thing. And he's in the back sleeping, and the wave going crazy. And they wake him up. "Don't you care if we die?" And he said, "Well, I'm tired." He says, "Why don't you do it?" And so again, that's what you and I are doing with the people. Why don't you do it? And they had to come to a realization that they could do it. And when they did, after he was gone, and when they did realize that, wait a minute, I can, they changed the world. And so we have to, we don't know who is sitting before us. We really don't, with these people. So we really have no idea. So when you were talking about that, that's why I wanted you to talk about it, Doc, about a lot of people don't even realize that they can lead. They're so caught up believing that they can't move, they can't do anything. And when they get that realization, life changes. And so anyone that is listening to Doc and I have this conversation, I want you guys to get in touch with Dr. Evans and talk to her. Get into her space. She has lots of information. And you heard me call her, for a lack of a better word in the English language, a badass woman. And so I want you guys to get in touch with her and learn from her. Learn from that strength that is in her, so that she can deposit some of that strength within you for you to realize the strength that is in you that has been there dormant for a long time, and have a conversation with her so that she can inquire of you why, so that out of this dance, you will then begin to say, I didn't know that I can do that. That's a choice I had, so that you can go forward. And so I want to thank you for coming down to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a great conversation. And by the way, you're the first person in a year and a half, 2 years, I have ever said that flowery, beautiful English word.
Thank you. This was amazing. I love every minute of it. And clearly we can talk for hours on end. So,
Yes. Thank you so much. I will make sure that we provide all of your necessary information whereby they can reach you, because I want them to get to know you, and for you to take those that are interested in moving on. She has the gift to move the beautiful sisters on, you sisters and you brothers too. If you need some strength, you call a strong woman. She'll put you out and get you moving. Thank you, Doc.
thank you. Enjoy the rest